Coming up on today's show, we're going to react to a Bleacher Report article that had Jerry Jeudy going to the Panthers in exchange for cornerback Jaycee Horn, and then we're going to wrap up the show with some front office news. But before we get into all that good stuff, I was looking at the YouTube analytics, and in December of 2023, we picked up 328 subscribers from our videos. Meanwhile, this month, we were at 312. So we're not where we were last month. We do still have some days left in the month of January. So help us out and click that sub button down below so we can shatter our December record. Now, let's get into the Jaycee Horn trade speculation, rumors, ideas, if you will, from the Panthers to the Broncos, because Bleacher Report came out with an article that went through all 32 teams and talked about what they could do trade-wise this offseason, and this was the idea they cooked up. But first, I want to set up a bit of a primer for what the Broncos have to work with going into the offseason. They are $24-ish million over the salary cap, which means they are either going to have to restructure contracts, release or trade players, and Jerry Jeudy, sitting at $13 million for 2024 cap hit, makes up about half of what they have to do to get back in the green. Now, they have a first, a third, a fourth, a fifth, and some other draft picks to go along with it. But they also have some key free agents they have to replace, like Josey Jewell, Will Lutz. But how about K'Waun Williams and Fabian Moreau, two guys that were slated to be starters one guy slated to be a starter going into the season, and Fabian Moreau took over as a starter a few weeks into the season. But Bleacher Report outlined this trade idea. Jaycee Horn and a 2025 fourth-round pick to Denver in exchange for Jerry Jeudy. So the Broncos get not the better of the two players, but to make up for that, they do pick up a future early day 3 draft pick. Now, before I tell you whether or not this is a good idea for Denver, I want to at least look at the facts here and kind of run through the stats, because Jerry Jeudy through 4 seasons with the Broncos has been underwhelming. Now, we can debate about why that is the case, but we all have to agree that after 4 years, the former Blitnikoff winner and the 15th overall pick in the draft has been underwhelming. If I told you on draft day in 2020 that Jeudy with 4 seasons in the books would not have more than 1,000 yards in any of those 4 seasons, we would all agree that is a disappointment. Now, in my opinion, it doesn't look like Jerry Jeudy is on track to get a second contract with the team. He's got his 5th-year option coming up this season. We all know that players in contract years tend to ball out, so there is a more than just small chance that Jeudy does return, but 4 years, we've got a pretty good idea as to who number 10 is, and that doesn't look like a player that the Broncos want to pay a whole bunch of cash to keep around for another 4 seasons. Maybe another team could fall in love with Jerry Jeudy, but I don't think that's going to be Denver. So when you take into account that Jerry Jeudy does not really appear to be on track to come back for a second contract, and then you look at Denver's cornerback room as we pair this trade together, you've got all-pro Pat Surtain. Jaquan McMillan's a stud, but he's a slot corner. You need another outside corner. And whether that is someone like Jaycee Horn or just a player from the draft or free agency, Denver has to find another outside corner. I know George Paton said they believe Riley Moss can be a starting caliber player. Hand up. I don't. If he was, he would have taken over from Damari Mathis a long time ago. But Jaycee Horn through 3 seasons with the Panthers has been one thing: unavailable. He has not been the most present player through 3 seasons with Carolina. This past season playing 6 games. Before that, a career-high 13 games. And in his rookie season, unfortunately, being limited to 3 games. But I want to look at that 2022 season a little bit closer, because that was by far his best year, and he played the most football that season. 3 picks, 3 pass breakups, did not allow a single touchdown in coverage, and Pro Football Focus ranked him 29th out of 118 qualifying players. So now that we've kind of run through the stats and things like that for both these players, let's revisit this Bleacher Report trade idea. Would you do this trade? Jaycee Horn to Denver, Jerry Jeudy to Carolina, and the Broncos pick up a 2025 4th-round pick. Yes or no? Scroll on down and give me your opinion as to whether or not this would be a good trade for the Broncos. Personally, I would prefer a 2nd-rounder, but I understand that beggars can't be choosers, and I can see the upside of Denver selling themselves on former 8th overall pick. You could pair number 8 with number 9 and Jaycee Horn and Pat Surtain. And if Horn is able to stay healthy, you're trading Jeudy on the last year of his contract, getting $13 million off your books, which you need to find a way to lower your overall cap hit. And you can get a day 3 draft pick out of it. That's not the worst package in the world. Is it as fun or as sexy as a first or second rounder? No, absolutely not. But I can also recognize that you might not have a whole lot of teams lining up at your doorstep to call for Jerry Jeudy if after 4 years he's got 4 seasons with less than 1,000 yards and a $13 million cap hit for this upcoming season. Now, the other trade targets that Bleacher Report identified included New York Jets, New York Giants edge rusher Azeez Ojulari, and just NFL draft picks. So before we talk about what a trade could Ojulari or draft picks in general look like, I do have to tell everyone about our sponsor today, which is Prize Picks. If you want to be beyond locked in on the Super Bowl, as I assume everyone watching is rooting for the 49ers, well, make sure you do that with Prize Picks. Prize Picks is super simple and user-friendly. All you do is select 2 to 6 players and then pick more or less on their projected stats. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. I'm taking the more on Patrick Mahomes at half a passing yard. That is what Prize Picks is doing for Broncos Country. Just half a passing yard. You might hate Mahomes. You probably do. But I think we can all agree he can throw for 1 passing yard. I also like the more on Isaiah Pacheco at half a total touchdown. And then I like the more on Christian McCaffrey at 36.5 receiving yards. So if you like my picks and you want to make some money while watching the Super Bowl, go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. That link is in the comments and description of today's video. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Now let's look at the other 2 trade options that Bleacher Report identified for the Broncos, starting with Azeez Ojulari, former day 2 draft pick for the New York Giants, and through 3 seasons, he has 16 sacks, 4 forced fumbles. He had a disappointing 2023 campaign, so his value could be pretty low right now, which will make him very cheap to get if the Broncos think they can maybe turn his career around a little bit, because we have seen some really good moments from Ojulari. And when you look at Denver's front 5, they've got to find ways to bring pass rushers. The Broncos had a good committee, I would say, last year with Cooper, Browning, and Benito, but that's all it was, good. And when you watch Patrick Mahomes throw and run his way to yet another Super Bowl, you have got to find more horses to get after Mahomes if you ever want to win the AFC West. And so bringing on Ojulari could be a way to help accomplish that goal. So that was one of the Broncos trade targets alongside Jaycee Horn. What about just getting draft picks in general? Well, here is Denver's 2024 draft picks. They've got a first, a third, a fourth, 2 fifths, and 2 sevenths. So they don't have a ton to work with, but they do have a first round pick, which will definitely bring in some interest for what Denver can do with their overall draft arsenal this year. Now, if you want to generate more draft picks, you can always trade back with those picks, or you can trade players away. Who could you trade away? Russell Wilson. No one's calling. Jerry Jeudy. Courtland Sutton. There will be phone calls. Sutton had 10 touchdowns this year. Jerry Jeudy has elusive and elite speed. Former Biletnikoff winner, former first-round pick by the Broncos. There is going to be more than just one GM out there that will be interested in trading for Jeudy. Left tackle Garett Bolles, he comes off one of his best seasons of his NFL career. So for a team looking to anchor down the left side of their offensive line, Garett Bolles is your man. And then Justin Simmons. I mean, an incredible leader to add to any NFL locker room. And then you toss in, he leads the league in interceptions since 2018, something like that. Yeah, I'm sure there are a lot of teams interested in 4 out of these 5 players. No one's calling for Russell Wilson, mostly because of his contract. If the contract didn't exist, I could see teams having interest in his QB services. But they are not going to do the Broncos any favors when they know Denver is just going to release him, and they could sign Russell Wilson for a vet minimum deal. So, of those 5 guys and just the entirety of the roster, who, if any, will get traded this offseason? Let me know down below in the comment section. I want to switch gears and talk about that front office news we teased at the beginning of the video. So Adam Schefter tweeted out earlier today, Broncos are finalizing the hire of former Saints assistant scouting director Cody Rager in a VP role within their personnel department per source. Rager will provide a fresh perspective for GM George Paton's staff and his familiarity with head coach Sean Payton from their time together in New Orleans. When I first saw this news, maybe I'm way off base here, but I thought, did George Paton just hire his replacement? I know Sean and George work well-ish together, but in all reality, Sean Payton's calling the shots. And if things don't go well in 2024, for whatever reason, I think we're going to see some heads start to roll. And it's definitely not going to be Sean Payton because he didn't trade or extend Russell Wilson. And that falls under George Payton's jurisdiction. So I wonder if Sean Payton brought his old buddy up from New Orleans because he believes there could be a GM opening in a year or two. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I'm getting ahead of my skis, but it's a little bit, unsettling if I'm George Paton that Sean Payton brought one of his favorite, front office execs up from New Orleans that is likely a candidate to rise to a GM position one day. And, what do you know? There's a good contingent in Denver that's not too happy with George Payton's job over the last year or so. Now, that's going to do it for us on today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I always appreciate those of you that take time out of your day to come hang out with us here at the channel. If you are still watching, scroll on down and type me. That way I can get a good pulse of the end of the video crew.